Have you ever realized that your consciousness has expanded? You have evolved, you have grown, but the identity you're living from have not yet caught up? Today, we're going to take a deep look at why you may believe differently, you may see yourself differently, you may understand God differently, but yet still choose, lead, speak, and present yourself through the earlier version of your old shadow self. You may be experiencing what I call identity lag. Identity lag is when your consciousness, your mindset, and your acknowledgement of new truths has a conscious awareness, but you're not yet giving yourself permission to live from that. And until we start closing that gap in this identity lag, we have to close that gap. You will still continue to hesitate right at the threshold. I know many of you have felt that, where you were just, you're right there. You're at the precipice of something amazing, but you still hesitate right at this threshold of your life, your work, your message, your spiritual assignment. You have to give yourself permission to activate that. So what we want to do today is talk about why you cannot fully activate an identity you are still afraid to claim. Let me take a breath here. Let me just check and make sure Facebook is here and that we are broadcasting live on Facebook. And let me check and see who's here with us. Great Grand Rising, thanks for joining us live today. We are here. Yes. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, there we go on Facebook. Okay. There we go on Facebook. Okay, so with that being said, lovelies, I want us to really give ourselves permission, because I'm going to drop some jewels here today. Today, we're entering a new dimension of our spiritual success identity pathway, dimension 4, adaptation. All right, so let's recap very briefly. Awareness, dimension 1, awareness helped us to understand what was operating beneath the surface. Dimension 2, awakening, helped us to remember who we are beyond the shadow identities, beyond the old patterns we inherited and developed. Dimension 3, alignment, helped us to become internally positioned in the truth and deepen our trust in our God self. So alignment helped us to go in, become internally positioned in agreement with the truth that we have awakened to. But now this dimension 4 is my favorite. It is profound. And in the fall, I am going to be presenting a wisdom school, a mystery school. Haven't got the name of it yet, but this is not for the faint of heart. This is for the mature, the spiritually mature individual that want to understand the mysteries, not the milk, not the meat, but the mystery of the kingdom. All right. So adaptation invites us now to consciously own, integrate, and begin living from your SAS, that strongest, authentic spiritual self, the God self, your identity, original identity that your evolution has created, right? This is not simply about adjusting the change. That's not what adaptation is. You're going to see this is very deep and very profound. It is about allowing the full expression of your wisdom, your life, your experiences, your education, your spiritual formation and growth, your healing, your revelation, your gifts, your studies, your expanded consciousness, to become part of one coherent, cohesive, synergetic, authentic expression. It's a beautiful tapestry that you have been weaving your entire life. But before you can integrate and express that identity, you must first give yourself permission to claim it. Our topic today: you cannot activate an identity you are afraid to claim. Let's activate this flow today. Take a good, healing, deep breath in and exhale. Bring your awareness right here. Come present right here, right now. Out of the noise, out of worry, out of concern. Come right here. This is the place of power. This is your defining moment. This is what's going to activate and begin the integration process of bringing all the parts of you, all the pieces of you together, so that we can create something wonderful and amazing and give yourself permission to start moving from this identity. I'm going to drop some jewels today, beloved, because I'm not here. No tricks, no gimmicks, not playing any games here. If we give room and make space for this sacred work, you're going to see your life change. If we just show up here to listen because we hear something good, but you never do anything with what you're hearing, you're not going to see the change, all right? So if you want, if it's helpful, just place a hand over your heart, another hand over your core self. Take one more breath in and relax. And ask yourself this question: who have I become that I have not yet fully acknowledged? You know you're growing. You know you've changed. You know you think differently. You believe differently. You understand God differently. But you're still presenting from your old shadow identity. Who have I become that I have not yet fully acknowledged? Don't rush to answer, beloved. Let's workshop together today, okay? Let's mastermind together. Let your spirit respond beyond your conditioned mind. Let your spirit respond before the conditioned mind starts trying to explain everything. What truth do you now know that you are still hesitant to speak? I've lived through all of this. Because you can say that you are awakened, you're not sleeping anymore, this doesn't work for me anymore, I've outgrown that, I've moved past that, I'm not there anymore, I'm not engaging in any of that. But yet and still, there is a truth that have awakened in you that you have not yet given yourself permission to live from. And until you do that, remember I said your gifts, your talents, your ability, your education, your wisdom, your spiritual formation, right? Everything, your studies, everything begins to come together. Your healing, all of that, so that you start weaving this beautiful tapestry that is your sass, the strongest, authentic version of yourself, right? Strongest, authentic, spiritual self, sass. It's unique to you. So what I'm seeking to do today is to help you give yourself permission to claim, activate, and integrate this identity. I've done it for years. In the last decade, when I was deconstructing and deprogramming and decommissioning and opening up and expanding, there were times when I would recognize that I was still presenting from an old identity for many reasons. We'll talk about some of that today. So what truth do you now know that you are still hesitant to speak? What wisdom do you carry that you continue to minimize? That was me. I'm in this place of all of this wisdom, all of this profound knowledge, gnosis, but minimize it because I didn't want to appear to be going out too far. What would the people that knew me from the old identity think of me? What will they try to label me as, right? If none of that matters, raise your hand and say none of that matters. Yes, let's see who's here today. Great Grand Rising, thanks for joining us, Jewel. Thanks for joining us, Reese. Thanks for joining us, Lisa. Thanks, Amanda, for joining us. All right. This is what's going to make all the difference in the world, right? What part of your spiritual identity remains hidden because you fear being misunderstood? That was me. That's how come I can teach this. I can come up with these things because I lived it, lived through it, and overcame it, right? What version of yourself are you still presenting because other people recognize and accept that version? That right there, y'all. Wait, come on. Right there. Y'all talk back to me if this is making any sense to you. I want to take my time right in here. If I don't get much further than here, I want to transmit this today. I want this in your spirit. So this is what you ask yourself, because again, this bears repeating. You could have awakened. You could be in a different place. You could understand God differently, understand your ministry different, understand your assignment differently. But if you don't give yourself permission to walk in that sass, that strongest, authentic spiritual self, and if you don't claim who you have become and speak that language, perform that identity, present that identity, you're not going to activate truth. Our wealth, our impact, our exposure and visibility will all be limited. Because there's a wisdom that you're carrying that you continue to minimize. There's a part of your spiritual identity that remains hidden. Now, this is grown-up stuff we're talking about. And when I come to do the wisdom school, the mystery school in the fall, we're diving deep into this so that you will begin to own this identity that you are being called to present to the world. Your people are waiting for you, okay? Now, because we're talking this way, this doesn't have to be anything that is deep and expansive, because when we start talking this way, sometimes you think you got to be doing something so profound. No, what we're talking about here is honesty, and you weaving this tapestry, pulling together all parts of you, from your spiritual formation, your spiritual growth and development, your education, your certifications, your intellectual property, all of that, we want to give you permission to own and integrate and present. I'm still on this journey, right? There's no such place as arriving. We just continue to evolve. What part of your spiritual identity remains hidden because you are afraid of being misunderstood? Y'all better talk back to me, because I know it's a lot of y'all, even when you're hearing the replay, it's a lot of you all that are minimizing your voice. You're hiding the truest part of your spiritual identity because you don't want to be misunderstood or labeled negatively. What version of you, I feel this real strong. What version of you are you still presenting because other people recognize and accept that version of you? I need some brave folks to come and go with me today. Come on, if you're brave, tell me, say, Dr. E, let's go. Let's go. Don't you realize that so many people abandon, self-sabotage because we don't want to be on the outside. We don't want to be misunderstood. We don't want to be labeled as something other than what's been familiar. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Sit in stillness just for 10 seconds here. And another 7 seconds. We want that to rest in your cells, right? So listen, beloved. I'm not inviting you to reject your past. That's not what we're doing. You are being invited to stop requiring your past to define the boundaries of your future. We have to create new wineskin today. That's what adaptation is about. As Yeshua the Christ said, you can't put new wine in an old wineskin. Speaking to the scribes and Pharisees, he's talking about bringing forth treasure from the old and the new. That is what adaptation is. So I'm not asking you to reject your past and badmouth who you are or judge other people who may still be operating. That's not what this is about. You're being invited to stop requiring your past to define who you are now, or to prevent you from setting proper boundaries so that you can activate who you are now. So I want you to just silently affirm this to yourself today. I honor every version of myself that helped me arrive here. Come on. Take a breath. Relax. I honor every version of myself. The messed up self, the anxious self, the addicted self, the promiscuous self, whatever it was. I honor every version of myself, the timid self, the insecure self, every version of me that got me here. I honor. Hand on heart. Just silently affirm this. I release the belief that I must remain who I once needed to be. At one point in my life, I may have needed to be all of that, hidden, shy, insecure, invisible. All of that helped me survive. That was my survival identity, right? The chronic anxiety, the worry, the stress. I released the belief that I have to remain who I once needed to be. And I give myself permission to acknowledge who I have become. Not with attitude of disregard, but an attitude of acceptance of this higher altitude, this higher way of being, right? Breathe here. We're activating today. Yes, yes, yes. We say I honor every version of myself. Come on. Yes. Yes. I feel that so strong. Come on. Yes, 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 yes. Woo-wee. I honor every version of myself. All the mistakes I've made, all the opportunities that I turned down and I hid from, all the crazy relationships I've entered into or whatever. I honor every version of myself because all of that played a part in getting you here. And now you have to give yourself permission to move on from that and acknowledge who you have become. We're not going to get anywhere, beloved, until we fix this identity lag. Because knowing you have changed, watch this, and living from that change are two different things. You did a lot of changing, but it's still all in your mind. It's still all in your thoughts. It is not yet in full expression and full ownership, especially if you're in a traditional environment and you're being called to be radical or non-traditional, right? Because this is not about hitting anybody. So let's get into this. Point one, the identity conflict, right? The identity conflict is the central conflict of adaptation. This is the main conflict of adaptation. It begins when your authentic spiritual self, your SAS, your strongest authentic spiritual self, that identity has expanded, but your self-definition has not caught up. You know you have evolved. You can feel the former identity no longer completely fits. You may not know what to call yourself. That's okay. You may not know how to describe your beliefs now. That's okay. You don't even know how to communicate this, how to communicate what you understand. That's okay. I promise I'm going to help you with all of that. How to publicly live from what you privately know. That right there. Come on, y'all. Is anybody sitting on some wisdom, some insight, some revelation that you are just still sitting on it privately? You may engage privately, but publicly, you're still hiding all of that. You're still hiding all of that. I remember when I was being asked to teach more about numbers, but we were taught that numerology was of the devil. It was a sin. But then I discovered that God is a God of numbers. Everything in creation, everything has numbers attached to it, right? We were taught to demonize astronomy, or what we call astrology. I'm not talking about horoscopes, right? I'm talking about what was written in the stars that scripture says was given to us for signs, seasons. Things are written there. I'm being called to bring this up into spiritual depth, right? But where I come from said all of that was the devil. That's witchcraft. All of that. Now, and for years I would sit on it and I would mute my wisdom and I would water it down and minimize it so to be palatable. Just like now when people are calling me, and saying, I want you to come, or I want you to do a Zoom, I have to send a nice letter and let them know I will gladly accept it. But I've outlined it in a way that graciously explain that I have evolved, and my consciousness and my awareness has expanded from a traditional model, but this is what I can do, and this is what we can create together. So I stay in the integrity of who I am now. I honor who they are, and we meet somewhere in the middle, and I bring them up. Y'all don't want to talk to me today. All right, let's go. So you're stuck now knowing all of this, but not being able to express it. So this may create tension between who you were and who you are now. I'm talking real good. What you were taught and what you know. Beloved, that's a big difference. It's a huge chasm between the two. For years, I just kept teaching what I was taught. But then I gradually started honoring what I come to know, the gnosis, the real true knowledge, right? There's tension now between what others expect and what feels true. I have hundreds of stories. When we come into wisdom school, we'll examine mine, we'll examine others, because the whole goal now is to get you to where you can live from the truth, taking one step at a time, okay? Tension develops between your inherited spiritual language, right? And your present spiritual consciousness. So like if you notice when I teach, you rarely ever hear me talk about the devil. That was my inherited spiritual language, but my spiritual consciousness helped me to recognize I'm probably the biggest devil in my own life, right? I inherited external consciousness, comparison, and socialization, but my spiritual consciousness expanded till I know that it's all about the inside revelation. It's all about the rich inner life. So this is what the tension looks like. So the conflict does not necessarily mean something is wrong. I want you to hear this. This tension and this conflict doesn't mean something is wrong. It just means that the old structure is no longer enough to contain or carry your expanded identity. You can't pour new wine into an old wineskin. It's just going to burst open. The wineskin is destroyed. The wine is destroyed and wasted, right? So we talked about the identity lag, right? And that's the distance between who you have become versus who you still permit yourself to be. That's the identity lag. Your consciousness may have evolved while your language, your title, your choices, your relationships, your work, your public expression remain attached to an earlier identity. I had to strip all of those titles, and I did it, moving from evangelist, pastor, prophet, apostle, right? Till I just landed on Dr. E. Sometimes. Mostly it's just Ilona Sanders, all right? So when you're in an identity lag, we're going to wrap up here. It may sound like, I know I've changed, but I don't know how to explain who I am now. I still hold the old language because people understand it. I did that for so long. And then slowly in the school, Spiritual Success Life, we have a whole glossary of terms that came out of my intellectual property based on this beautiful tapestry of my life. So I'm using all this terminology, making references to sacred texts that was not in the biblical tradition of sacred texts, right? But slowly but surely, I had to adjust the language. So when you're in identity lag, it sounds like, okay, I still use the old language because people understand that, right? If you notice, I just shift from just saying Jesus to saying Christ consciousness, which is so much more expanded than just thinking about the individual that walked the shores of Galilee, right? Not saying Jesus, but saying Yeshua. All of these things you have to give yourself permission to do, right? So it may sound like I believe differently than I speak publicly. God, I did that for so long. I believe one thing, but publicly I'm speaking something else because I wanted that to be acceptable. I don't want to offend anybody. But really and truly, all I was doing was abandoning my truth, right? I know my former identity no longer fit, but the new one still feels unfamiliar. So what does that look like? Using titles that no longer describe you. Hiding spiritual practices or beliefs. Oh my goodness. I grew up in an era in the Christian church back in the 70s and 80s where everything was a sin. We couldn't light a candle. We couldn't read any other book except the Bible. Oh my goodness, we couldn't listen to, y'all know it. Y'all know what it was like back in the day. But when you grow and expand, and in our spiritual success community, we develop what we call DSPs, daily spiritual practices that are unique to you. And no one can judge you for your spiritual practices. You have to own them because they're making you solid, allowing you to be powerful, right? So it looks like you soften your message beyond recognition again, right? Separating different parts of your spiritual identity. Okay, when I go over here, I'll act like this. When I go over here, I'll act like this. There's a difference between I become all things to all people that I may win some, than you are abandoning and taking on a false identity to fit in. When Yeshua said that, that simply means, or Paul said it, one of them said it, they were referring to, I know how to meet people where they are without condemning them. I know how to meet people where they are without judging them. And then I bring them into the truth of what the Almighty is revealing. So you don't have to keep repeatedly explaining why you have changed. You don't have to do all that over explaining. Just let your change speak. And don't minimize the value of who you have become or what you have learned, because you're going to delay your work, your real work, until you feel everybody can understand it. And we don't want to do that. So you may not lack clarity in this season. You may lack permission. You may lack permission. You have not yet given yourself the permission to be that. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Come on, thoughts, questions, comment, feedback. Tell me, what are you understanding about this today? What is reaching in? What are you taking away? I'm telling you, when I looked at expanding this dimension of adaptation, that's when I got the call to go deeper. And that happened, it's been a year now since I paused SSL. I paused SSL in July of 2025. It's been a whole year, and I paused it because probably 3 to 6 months before that, I kept feeling like I have to teach at a deeper level, a more advanced level. So what did I do? I did the mastery, SSL mastery, right? And we started dealing in deeper spiritual principles, but that wasn't enough. I knew I couldn't keep on that level. And so I took a break from SSL. That was us meeting up Mondays at noon. I took a hiatus, and for a whole year, I've been privately in incubation in the workshop, pulling everything together for the mystery school, the wisdom school, right? That's not for the faint of heart. It's for the spiritually mature, right? Where we come in and we expand this integration of this beautiful tapestry you have been weaving your entire life. Different modalities that you may have had to learn from, different people you were attracted and drawn to, other spiritual pantheons, right? I have been called to all of that. This is why I had to make the shift, why I had to come out of the traditional church setting, because my assignment is to a conscious spiritual community. They may be Christian, they may be Muslim, they may be Hebrew, they may be Hebrew Israelite, they may be Catholic. It doesn't matter. I am beyond the box of a label of a religion. You have to know what you're called to. See, this is what I'm called to. You have to know what generation you're being asked to serve. Anybody that's attached to me, you have a cross-generational anointing. That's why you're still here. Cross-generational anointing. Absolutely. That's why you are still here. Because you have to impact. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I did that. Okay. Wrong one. You have to impact something greater, a generation greater than yourself, right? I have absorbed this message as encouragement and confirmation that it is due time and okay to be who I am unapologetically, who I have grown to be, walking in my assignment. Absolutely. Your assignment is amazing. That's what I want everybody to grasp here today. Come on, type that in the chats. My assignment is amazing. My assignment is my wealth. Come on, talk back to me. You need more money? We need to get to our SAS. You want a fulfilling, a mutually beneficial relationship? Walk in your SAS. You still are trying to track Mrs. Right, Mr. Right? Walk in your SAS. Own who you have become. You may have to talk about some things that may sound foreign. And if people are offended and feel like what I'm doing is demonic, then those are just not my people. You don't let their limitation limit you or stop you. Then that's not who I'm called to. If you can't get, I've had people come inside programs, stay for a while, but got intimidated. They could not deny the transformation. They could not deny that they were in the basement, but now they're up, they're transformed, but they were afraid because the language was different. And they would say things like, this sounds new age to me. All right, so it sounds new age. Are you growing? Right? I wrote that before you ever mention assignment, that's proof that my son, yeah. I love it, yes. That's proof that your assignment is truly amazing. All right, lovelies, we're going to be on dimension 4, adaptation. Adaptation is not about you becoming something else to fit in. It's about you adapting to the truth of who you are, all parts of you. Everything you've learned, everything that you accomplished, your spiritual formation, your insight, revelation, wisdom, your healing, all of that now, we have to acknowledge and give ourselves permission to be that. All right? Don't forget to like and leave a comment after we are done. Let's blow this algorithm open and share this on your timeline if you feel led to do that. And we'll meet at the next Spiritual Success Identity Pathway Connection. Bye for now, beloved.